Hello.
Hello, good morning.
I wonder if we're gonna have anyone today.
It sure seems like vacation season's uh in full effect.
Well, look, we got Jonathan.
I get Jonathan, yeah. I think, yeah, on the European side it'd probably be a little light, but we'll see.
Jonathan, it feels like half of our company is on vacation.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then
We
Todd will
do.
be out next week. I'll be out the week after that. It's gonna be interesting month.
Do you guys get a bunch of extra vacation to match all of your European colleagues?
Technically it's unlimited for me, but all that means is I probably take like
We have
fewer
unlimited vacation
vacations.
too, and I think it's stupid. Like,
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. We have to track it though, so it's like unlimited but tracked somewhere. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
It's all good. Hey David, good morning. All right, I'll share the notes quickly. We don't have a ton of agenda items. If you have anything, please feel free to add some stuff. We'll get started in just a moment. And yeah,
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna be pretty light today. I
it'll be
think
pretty
this might
light.
be our
Yeah.
record smallest meeting.
Hey Todd, would you be willing to show the React testing stuff and possibly talk about the Java one?
Yeah, I can probably do that really quick.
All right. All right. Cool. So I did share the notes in there. If people wouldn't mind just adding themselves as participants. Is there anyone, where did there it goes. Would anyone be willing or interested to do, to be kind of the scribe today?
Whew. Yeah, I can probably do it.
All right. Thanks. All right. And then if you don't mind just adding yourself, to the list there. Um, Cool. So I'll kick it off. This one's pretty short. I just want to put a feeler out, basically. We've been using something called DCO for a while in OpenFeature, actually since basically the inception. Um, this CNCF requires either DCO or CLA in order to contribute code, and it's basically, in a nutshell, it's a way of you like letting the CNCF know that you're donating this code or you're willing to donate this code, you're able to donate this code. DCO is basically signing off your commits. And if you've ever opened a pull request in OpenFeature, you've almost certainly had it rejected the first time because you forgot to do the -s when you commit. Um, it's kind of painful, in my opinion. And it's not super obvious, especially for first-time contributors. Uh, we do have to use something though. And so I was looking at how other tools do it. Kubernetes, OpenTelemetry, almost everything is part of the Linux Foundation uses CLAs. They use something called Easy CLA. This is slightly like it's a
It's a
one-time
one-time.
uh, setup process. Basically, when you first do your first pull request, either yourself or an organization can sign the CLA, and then it's basically you're good for all future contributions, and you'll see it as part of like a pull request check. I can put in the request with the CNCF. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking the question because I remember when we were doing the what was the name for the OpenTelemetry semantic
hmm
stuff.
Yep.
I remember it, and it was a little bit painful too. I think at that time there was an issue with the tool as well.
Okay.
And I remember it doing it to to add myself to the contributors list. And actually, I wonder if you do once, for example, in the case of OpenTelemetry, then you would need to repeat the same process for OpenFeature, or even even inside of OpenFeature, per each repo you would need to do the same. You know what I'm
Yeah,
to say?
this would be org wide from my understanding. I will double check before we do anything. I think if it is not org wide, this would be quite painful still. It is not cross org though. So we wouldn't, like, if you signed in OpenTelemetry, you'd still have to sign here.
Mhm.
I can run it by the CNCF. I've been trying to attend those their monthly kind of town hall meetings, so that could be something I could ask about. You know, it does potentially make sense, but I need to look at it a little bit further, to be honest. So like, I guess I just wanted to run it by the group here today to see if there was any strong resistance to it. And if not, I will basically put in a request with the CNCF to at least get access to it so we can review it further. And I'll try to communicate the flow, but it when I've done it in the past, it was relatively straightforward, but it does require you to enter like slightly more personal information than the DCO, which is basically you can sign off with any email address you want, basically. Um, yeah. Any other questions or concerns about that? I haven't really committed to it yet, but I'd like to see what we can do. The DCO stuff has proven to be quite painful, in my opinion. Okay, nothing else. Okay, so yeah, I'll follow up in the future. I think it's one of those things that's like we're not in a huge rush for it, but it's something I'd like to try to address if we can. Okay, I just wanted to remind people that we have the OpenTelemetry feature flag semantics, project ongoing right now. We have two sponsors from the OpenTelemetry side, and it's like part of their like every 2 weeks there's a dedicated session for that. You can find it on the OpenTelemetry calendar there, and the goal is to have this wrapped up hopefully by KubeCon. And really, uh, we have a dedicated Slack channel. Actually, there's two of them, unfortunately, so we may need to archive one. But pop in there if you have any interest in either contributing or just following the progress. And we're certainly looking for more vendors. Right now, the only vendor present is Launch Darkly, and they're looking at basically Ryan actually was like, could we try to get at least one other vendor in there, just so we get some more diverse perspectives there. It's not a huge lift, and really it's just making sure that the properties that we're including on the semantics align as closely with like as many vendors and common terminology as possible, and it doesn't become too vendor specific. So next meeting is Monday. I think it's like 10 a.m. Eastern time, but I can confirm if you have any interest. And yeah, you can look at previous recordings too if you'd like to kind of understand what the semantics mean and how that works. But we're basically I think in the next meeting, we'll have like an initial proposal of what events we would like to capture and some basic properties that we would like to include on there. And we'll probably start working on in the prototyping phase shortly after that. Any questions on that? All right.
Yeah, if you
Cool.
could add me to it, I'll try and make it. Mondays are a bit tough, but I'll see.
Yeah, understood. Okay. Um, cool. And yeah, if you follow it too, that may be helpful. But yeah, I'll invite you, and if you can make it, great. If not, I'll try to catch you up.
Where can we find the calendar invite for that?
I'll try to link it afterwards. But it's on the OpenTelemetry like community calendar. So I'll message it in the
What's the
channel.
channel for it?
Yeah, let me
Is it
pause real quick.
OpenFeature observability?
So we have one for observability, and then they created one called OTel-FF-SemCon, and that's the one that
What?
like the OpenTelemetry team created.
Okay. I'll just join that.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably deprecate ours then, the OpenFeature observability one, in favor of the SemCon one, because that's like more OpenTelemetry official. But the goal is to kind of accelerate that now that we have all of the buy-in and sponsorship and stuff there. And it just makes it a lot easier if we have it officially part of their semantic convention. Okay. Actually, Yeah, I'll link the calendar stuff afterwards, and I'll just mention it so you guys can find it. The last one I wanted to mention is the code gen. So some folks from Google have popped in and been really excited about this initiative. I've been trying to work with them and basically try to act as a sponsor of that. We did create an OpenFeature-code gen channel, and right now we have like a project proposal Google Doc right now, and we've started basically another Google Doc that's more of the like kind of flag manifest proposal. And so in a nutshell, like the initial MVP would be like, can we define a really simple flag manifest, which is like the very bare bones basic like representation that we would need to generate accessors basically for working with feature flags. And then we'll create some kind of CLI tool that can basically output in a few different languages. Likely Go, but we'll probably also try to do Java and probably like JavaScript/React for the MVP. And if you have any interest, yeah, pop in there. I think it's something that will probably accelerate quite quickly because there's a handful of people from Google that will lend their engineering support there. So I think it's got a lot of potential and it's quite interesting. So I just want to mention that that's ongoing as well. Any concern or any questions about that?
I guess the code gen part of it is generating like the types, like the strict types for it, or is it actually generating like statements like variable statements that you would put into your code? Or is it kind of both?
Like the prototype that has been created so far is basically just like instead of like using a OpenFeature client with like a string flag key, like the flag key would essentially be turned into a method name. And so you wouldn't have to supply the flag key anymore or default value. It would just be like direct method calls essentially. And I think in the future we could generate more like type safe evaluation context and like so the arguments and stuff could be more generated. But the goal is basically if we do that, then we can, if a flag's removed, then it obviously no longer generates that code. And then, the compiler can help find, references to the flag and stuff like that.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, we have something kind of similar with our obfuscation stuff, but okay. Yeah, there's certain languages like TypeScript where you could just kind of override the like the get string value, get whatever Boolean with like strictly typed like key and default value fields, which is kind of what the approach we've done, but yeah, like methods, like strictly typed methods was another approach as well.
Yeah, I mean the initial prototype that both I did and the team from Google did were basically just like a friendly wrapper essentially on top of a regular OpenFeature client. But the advantage of it being generated is, well, the compiler stuff, but we can also add like docs and all kinds of nice, kind of developer experience around this. And so I think it's quite interesting, but we'll have to kind of experiment with it a bit. So this is definitely in like the experimentation prototype phase, but I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a good approach.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions about that section?
Yeah, actually, I have a question around that. So, basically, if I get it correct, what we are planning to achieve with the code generation is basically use the flags that are on the provider, correct, and then generate strongly typed flags. So the developer, when it's programming, knows, okay, this is a correct flag. It's not what's the name? It's not, for example, sometimes a magic string that gets,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. That's
So-
basically exactly it.
So I was playing a couple of months ago. I was playing with the Roslyn codegen for .NET. So sorry again, I know that I only speak .NET, but is what I program most. And basically, the way that it works is during the compilation, it searches for signals in the code base, and then you are able to generate code from there. Actually, it's a quite straightforward API to work with. My only concern in relation to that, if this go ahead for .NET, is the cost of making, for example, a call to the external provider in order to get the flag. And other concern that I have is in the case that, for example, in the meantime, the flag is deleted from the server, but the code is still not updated with the latest flag, that might be a mismatch, and it's something that we need to gather before we decide to go ahead, because this is if the flag doesn't exist, some error need to be thrown.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's kind of already handled because it could happen right now. Like you could easily have a bunch of references to flags that haven't been created yet, have a typo, or have been deleted or archived. And so that's a state that basically already exists and also might be really interesting in like the, OpenTelemetry, telemetry capturing portion too.
Actually, very fair point.
So
I
yeah,
think-
I think this actually potentially helps. And so one thing that we still need to figure out from the code gen spec perspective is like how much, at least for an MVP, do we want to support fetching flag configurations from like different tools and building this manifest? I think eventually we'll have to, but at first we could basically just say like, if the manifest exists, then we generate the code. So it's kind of two stages. We have to like fetch from a source of truth and generate a manifest, and then we have to use that manifest to generate code. So it's kind of two stages.
Exactly. I think it's more of a two stage is a good way to put it. Like, I think the way I see this working on a first implementation, Andre, would be like you're wherever you're storing your flags, whatever system they're in, when you create a new flag or whatever, it generates some artifact, and then that artifact is pulled into the code, and that's the strongly typed SDK that you kind of get. So I think it's not perfect, but it's a little bit less dynamic than what you're describing. It's more of like a two-stage thing, to use Mike's language.
Right, good. Thank you for this chat, because it's actually something that I was researching a couple of months ago for .NET, so it's interesting that this was brought.
Yeah. Feel free to at least like join the Slack channel, but obviously happy to have you contribute too. And if you have any like other projects that you think have done code gen well, try to link them in there. We're in the discovery phase basically right now for this.
Would it make sense for like an OFREP style API to like eventually output like this data for?
That would actually make it probably quite easy, right? If like tools could just say like, we have this endpoint to fetch the manifest or something, and people could build that, then we wouldn't have to do any kind of computation basically in whatever CLI or whatever. So yeah, I think that could be really interesting. Yeah, actually that's probably a good approach, because I was thinking it more like we'd have to have different implementations for every tool and then like convert it to the manifest.
Yeah, like a lot of tools have CLIs. Like we have a CLI where you can get the data from, but it's probably better if there's just a API where we basically run that code for you and fetch all the data you need.
Yeah, and the basic requirements are really small. Like all you need is a flag key, at least what we think is a flag key, a default value, and like a type, basically. Oh, did I lose everyone?
No.
No, okay. It's like everyone froze at the same time on my screen. So okay. Yeah, cool. That's definitely something to keep in mind.
I lost you there for a sec. I don't know if anyone else did.
Okay, I
So
think
did I.
I think we're back. But no, I like that idea. I think that's something I'll bring up as part of that initiative as well. I did also link the OTel calendar in our docs. I'll add it to the notes as well, just so we have it. Oops. Okay. Okay, that's basically it for my couple sections then. Over to you, Todd.
Yeah, I think this should be fairly quick. I was actually thinking that this might become a blog post, but I'll really quickly just explain. We recently released two utilities to improve testing in some specific frameworks, which I think are pretty cool. So one of them is the React SDK. This is the snippet from the README, which I won't bother just reading directly, and so I'll show you. For those of you that are familiar with React and the React SDK, basically you have this OpenFeature provider scope that you have to enclose all your components in, and when you enclose your components in, you're then able to evaluate flags using the hooks. But the key is you have to enclose your component in this, like this is my component under test in this case. You have to enclose this in a provider, and this is what gives all the OpenFeature context. In testing, if you were to just try and test this component, which uses a feature flag evaluation hook like this, you get an error as soon as you try and run it, because we yell that you need to set up this context. So what we released was this OpenFeature test provider, which is basically an extension of the existing context. But it allows you to do some really nice like shortcuts for mocking flags, basically. So this is just a no-op. If you wrap your component under test in this guy, the flag just uses the default value. Here you can also pass a map of flags with values, and you'll get that value. And then you can also artificially delay the startup. And lastly, you can submit a partial provider implementation. So into the test component and have full control over the flags that are resolved. So this is basically just like some nice React testing goodies that allow you to do mocking. This is all like published right now. Like I said, there's a section now, a testing section in the React SDK that talks about it, but I think it's pretty nice. It's pretty React idiomatic. Any specific questions on that? Cool. Okay, I'll move on to Java. So Java, this one I can't take credit for. One of my colleagues at Dynatrace actually did it. It's pretty clever. So it's a JUnit extension. It's in the contrib repository, so it's not part of the the Java SDK proper, but it's an extension. So yeah, it's called just JUnit OpenFeature, and basically it allows you to add this annotation over test classes, and it injects flags similarly. So obviously there's a little bit of a difference between server-side flags and client-side flags, which is what React is. But in the server, this is just an example of basically defining flags. And you can see you can actually define this flag multiple times, and it will evaluate multiple times based on how many times it occurs. There's lots of really cool features in this little testing library, but it's all annotation driven. You get to do this cool mocking. You can even mock multiple providers if you feel like it. Where's an example of that? I don't think there is in this. But yeah, you can have full control and actually mock multiple providers this way too. So it's a pretty cool little testing library for Java. We're using it internally at Dynatrace. It's been helpful for us. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is work with Simon, who authored this, to do a little blog post to talk about both of these. But testing utilities are cool, and I think they're pretty easy to build for OpenFeature because of our existing abstractions. So if you are excited about it, you can add one for any of the languages in question you like. But I think that's all I have. Any other questions?
No questions. Just yeah, making testing work well with feature flagging is one of those unsolved problems that I don't think anyone does especially well right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of it's something that I've always seen as a little bit of a blind spot. I mean, obviously you can come up with solutions, but it's surprising how few recommendations there seems to be across the board. Anyway, I put some doc in the meeting notes. I feel free to take a look.
Yeah, really cool. Thanks for the demo. All right. We're basically through the list, so I guess we can leave it open for a second. If anyone has anything they'd like to talk about, please feel free. Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap up in a minute.
Just to finish up, I want to bring one thing in relation to the .NET SDK. And I mean the 2.0 release. We had a couple of bug fixes that we needed to do in relation to version 1. One actually it was reported by the community. Another one Todd added in relation to targeting key. And honestly, I think we should think of getting 2.0 out, because again there is a lot of good stuff, a lot of and new changes and breaking changes. I see that there are already efforts starting in spec 0.8, and I think that will be an amazing milestone for 2.1. I will start resuming work on after the summer break. I will resume working on the hosting, the extensions that everyone in .NET asks, because it's like the standard for when you use the web host. So, and actually it was started by another contributor, but it didn't finish. So I'm trying to get my head around and understand what is done. And I think it's for example, another 2.x update. So what's your thoughts? Do you think we are in a good position to do that, or I'm saying nonsense?
No, I think you're totally right. I committed those other changes today. I also, or not today, this week, I also backported them to the 1.x release. I think there's only one very small thing I consider a blocker. And it's incredibly small. I wanted to do it myself this week, but I've been working on internal stuff. I just put it in the Zoom chat. It's this issue 249. It's basically just a rename of a whole bunch of existing variables. And the only reason that I think it's a blocker is because I'm worried there could be some breaking changes. So I don't want to release 2.0 and then do this, because we might have changes, and obviously we don't want that. But basically it's just renaming client name to domain everywhere, because that's the new terminology we use. So I think in effect it amounts to like basically a bulk replace of everywhere we use name and client name. We might even be able to do it in a non-breaking way, but I'm not totally convinced of that. So I'd really like just to have it done before we do a 2.0. But when this is done, I personally feel like we can release the 2.0.
Okay, no, that's a fair point, because if if it's just internal code, like we can release today. But if these domain scoping is exposed in the public API, forget. We need to do that part of 2.0, because I don't feel well releasing two breaking changes, like in 2 days, I'm trying to say. So I think that's a good point. I think it's possible, yeah. Going to add that. No, I cannot. Sorry. I thought you could have multiple milestones associated. So because I wanted to add, to the 2.0, so in order to close the milestone. But yeah, like it's a fair and a valid concern. So yeah, all right, I understand. So we can think of get these renaming done, and then we release 2.0, and then once with spec 0.8 we can go 2.1, because it's a spec one. So
Yeah,
thank you for
that's
that.
Yeah, that's my feeling. I think it's just this rename and then we release 2.0, and then there is still a few things to do for a 0.8, like the transaction propagation and stuff, but I don't see that it's breaking. It hasn't been breaking in any implementation, so I think it's, like you said, a 2.1.
Yep, the only other thing I would ask, since this is a new major release, if in our release notes, we could have like any kind of migration steps required, just to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I can take care of that one. I mean, I'll basically do that as part of the release. I'll just add a blurb of what to do, but it's not really that hard, to be honest. Like they're breaking, but they're not hard breaking changes to consume. It's basically adding in a weight here or there and changing a method name here or there.
Okay. And I guess just to set a timeline, then Todd is out next week, so I guess the week after that is probably when we could do it. So if the other issue is done, then I think we can do it. Otherwise, maybe Todd can try to knock that out when he's back or something, I guess, and we can try to get it out. Okay. Sounds good. Cool. So hopefully by the next community meeting, we have 2.0 released.
That would
So-
be my expectation.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, perfect. Looks like Jonathan added something too, so over to you.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick recap of we are developers. So yeah, so thanks to I think Michael. Oh, my computer decided to lock itself for some reason. Yeah, thanks Mike. We got a free booth at GitHub's booth there, basically. They had like an open source yeah, section of their booth where open source projects could show off their stuff. And yeah, and I think one of the nice things is about it seems like about half of the booths didn't show, so it sounded like we were able to sort of like get a bigger and bigger booth by the hour. So yeah, that sounds like we had a pretty big presence there. I think there was Andrew and Terne from our team, and then Simon, I think, from Dynatrace. We're all there, and yeah, it sounded like it's a similar size conference to KubeCon, but definitely more geared towards the more generalist application developer crowd than infrastructure teams. So I think it sounded like it was a lot more fit our yeah, maybe it fit people who are probably using OpenFeature and feature flags a bit more directly. There was yeah, less having to explain what feature flags are and how they integrate into your backend service or whatever, your Kubernetes, at at this conference. So a lot more like front end application developers, stuff like that. But yeah, it sounds like it was pretty successful. Lots of good deep conversations. So yeah, overall, I think it went pretty well. And apparently got to see Daft Punk, but I don't know if I believe it was real Daft Punk. They're calling it Schrodinger's Daft Punk because like you don't know if it was Daft Punk or not.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't matter at that point, right? It's just people wearing the helmets playing the
Exactly.
music, so pretty cool. All right. Yeah, glad it went well. It looked like a great event, so hopefully we can continue to do that. And I guess if anyone else notices any decent sized conferences, especially if they offer like open source booths and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let me know because I'm happy to apply for that. I think it really cool opportunities for us, and yeah, nice to connect
Yeah, I think
with
we're gonna
developers.
try and work on GitHub Universe, because with our connections to GitHub now, but we'll see.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I actually looked at applying there, and all of the stuff was like AI focused, so I wasn't even sure if we had like an
Mhm.
appropriate track. Although we could always pivot into AI stuff, I guess, right? Uh, all right. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the update. Uh, anyone else have anything? All right. Well, perfect. Yeah. Nice chatting with everyone, and have a great day and a nice weekend.
Enjoy your summer.
All right, you too. Talk to you later. Bye, everyone.